All right, we're going to go ahead and get started. So again, thank you for joining us for Think Thursday, our free monthly webinar. Today's topic for August, we were talking about cultivating relationships virtually. So hopefully you'll get some good tips or ideas out of today and be able to give some as well. So we're going to go ahead and get started. My name is Kristen Campbell. For those of you who are new or never have seen our previous webinars, or if you were even here last month, you actually got a chance to meet my husband, Justin Campbell. So together we founded the Urban Connection Project back in 2014. The purpose of our organization is to raise the odds of success for teachers through the implementation of culturally responsive teaching. So I'm going to talk a little bit about that in a second, but we basically work with schools and school districts as well as college of education preparation programs to provide support for teachers. So that's professional development, observations, coaching, some of the products that we've created, implementing those. So that can look a lot of different ways, but that's just a quick spiel. If you want to know more, check out the website. There's plenty of information on there. I don't want to take up all the time with that. So, all right, today, one of the things that we always require is that you are willing to get outside of your comfort zone. We believe that that's where the magic happens. That's where the growth happens. That's where we're able to actually get something done. So if you came today, I assume it's because you want to try out something new or you want new ideas. So I know we'll have no problem sticking to this one rule for the day, being sure to get out of your comfort zone, to try something new. Speak up if you feel like you have something to add to the conversation. And by speak up, I mean actually on the chat box. We're actually going to keep everything mute just to keep this quick and easy. But if you go ahead and locate your chat box, that is where we can interact if needed. You can send messages to everyone, or you can send them to just me. Obviously, we want to keep this as on topic as possible, trying to make this as quick as possible. So if you feel like it's advantageous for the group or something that you would like to let me know, please feel free to use that chat box. And actually, we're going to all use it right now. So really quickly, those of you who have already started school, those of you who have school coming up soon, I know we're having all kinds of different feelings. I want you to just tell me in one word or one phrase, how is it that you are feeling right now? One word or one phrase, add it to the chat box. How are we feeling? And please be honest. Okay, unsure. I mean, that's real. Be honest. There's a lot going on. Anxious? Yes, yes, yes. Ouch, okay. Healthy trepidation, okay. Anyone else in there? I think for me, there is definitely a little of all of these things, but overwhelmed, yeah, definitely. Switching to virtual is a whole new beast. So just trying to give some information as I'm getting information and vice versa, always looking for more ways that we can support teachers. One of the things that you'll see even at the end, if there's any questions from today, anything that you want more information on, anything you're like, hey, I've tried this, do you mind if we talk a little bit more about it? I will have my email there. Most of you already have it anyway, but I'm definitely open to being able to support in that way. So I hear you, I relate with you, I understand, and hopefully we'll get just a few quick tips today that will help out this process. Okay, so like I said, we talk about culturally responsive teaching. Again, if you've been with us before, you kind of know the spiel, but I'm going to go through it quickly for those who have not. When we talk about culturally responsive teaching, we define it as the bridge between teacher and student, built by the infusion of cultural experiences that are necessary to implement systems of accountability, to cultivate necessary relationships, and to ensure content acquisition. So you'll see the visual there. I'm kind of a visual person, so I always like to make those, but the soil you'll see represents that cultural awareness. That's really the self-awareness, knowing my experiences, how they affect my perception, how they affect my interactions with others, and how they have helped to create implicit bias within myself, because everyone has implicit bias. The only issue is when we leave that implicit bias unchecked. when we don't understand where it comes from and how we're possibly kind of rubbing it off on those who we interact with, especially our students, because they also come with their own experiences, and that's something we have to learn to understand, respect, and utilize in this quest for success. So you'll notice it is the soil because it's underground. It's something, or it's in your heart, in your mind. It's something we can't see. It's the work you have to do, but what we can see are the results, the effects of whether you have healthy level of cultural awareness or not. Can we build upon that or can we not? You'll then see the systems as the foundation. So for this, we're talking about expectations. We're talking about behavior systems, reward systems, routines and procedures, all kinds. Basically, how do students and yourself even know what to expect? What happens if you do? What happens if you don't? How do we make sure that we lay a clear foundation of this is how we work? Whoever enters in can continue on. There's not necessarily a hierarchy or one person in control, but we all know what is expected. So having those systems are super important. Building upon that, relationships, that's something we're going to talk about a little bit today. When we talk about relationships, we're really mostly focusing on that teacher to student relationship, but really that's also with other stakeholders that contribute to the student's success. So we're really talking about what are some ways that we can cultivate authentic relationships that also lay a clear understanding and expectation for success. And the last layer you'll see there is the rigorous and accessible content, what we come to school for, right? So we're talking about how can we ensure that the content that we're providing is appropriately rigorous for our students, and how can we ensure that it's accessible? Accessible meaning, is it scaffolded and supported in a way that our students can access the skills that are necessary to be successful? And is it accessible as in I am providing some real world context or cultural context. My students can see why this is even applicable and important to them, and they can access this information. So those are some of the ways that we support teachers, like I said, through professional development, through products, through mentoring, et cetera. If you have more questions or want more information on that, again, email, website, products, it'll all be in today's webinar. All right, so we're going to go ahead and dig right in. Again, today we're talking about relationships and ways that we can cultivate those relationships virtually, because we know that it's going to be a little bit more difficult to build relationships virtually. It's almost like online dating, which, hey, some people have had some success with. I don't know much about it, and I'm sure it works for some people, but at some point you have the physical, and that helps to grow, right? So in this case, what are we doing without the physical that's going to allow us to still be able to build healthy, strong relationships with our students? So when we talk about healthy relationships, what are some of the signs of a healthy relationship? When the ones that I'm going to show you, they're not necessarily all healthy signs. I mean, I think all of us even have some of our own definitions here of what is healthy for us. But generally speaking, through the research, through my own experience, these are the ones that I felt were most necessary in a teacher-student relationship. So communication, we all know that's always a healthy sign, a sign of a healthy relationship. Trust, security, emotional support, mutual respect, equity, honesty, kindness, compassion, and empathy. And last but not least, fun or humor. Gotta have a little fun. So these are some of the signs of a healthy relationship. So therefore, we need to be cognizant of inserting opportunities for these specific areas to grow with our students. I don't think it's all going to happen every day or with every student, but just knowing these characteristics ensures that we're constantly thinking about ways to foster opportunities in order to help those characteristics be a little bit more present in our day-to-day. So knowing that, there we go. There are ways that we can do this both academically and non-academically. I think a lot of times we talk about, we think just non-academically, but it can go both ways. It's a balancing act, right? It's also something that we want to ensure that we're doing on a daily basis, as well as a weekly basis for maybe some activities that we implement, in order to really cultivate those characteristics. And again, it can be difficult virtually, but it can be done if we're just intentional and we're planning for it like we are our content. So like I said, it can be done academically or non-academically, and I'm going to give you two, I guess, activities or ideas academically as well as two non-academically. And again, these may be things that you're already doing. They may be additional ideas. There may be additional supports that would help to make it even more successful. Take from it what you can, and again, if there are any questions or more information needed, please let me know. Okay, so let's start out non-academic. One of the ways that I was able to build relationship with my students is through what I call class counsel. I didn't make that up. What is called class counsel. But that was obviously something that was kind of easier done in person, but it still can be done virtually. And so I'm going to talk a little bit about what that can look like virtually. And really, it provides a space for you to communicate. So that's obviously one of those characteristics, to build trust, to build emotional support for your students, to foster compassion. The list can go on. So you can hit a lot of those characteristics within a class counsel type of setting, I would say on a weekly basis, but you can even implement pieces of this maybe even on a daily basis. So we're going to go a little bit more into depth on that in a second. The other idea that I would use to build relationships non-academically is through interactive games. It's a space for you to exhibit kindness, communication, especially the fun part, right? We know that students kind of show us a little bit more of their personality when they're having fun, when they're letting loose, when they're feeling comfortable. And so obviously game time is always a good time to build that relationship. And I think a lot of times non-academic ways, they're talked about and they're used, but they're not, the importance on them isn't really emphasized enough, in my opinion, because it's not academic. We're not spending time on the academics, and I get that. There's always so much we've got to cram into a year. Believe me, I have felt the pressure of that, and I get it. But what I can say through my own experience, as well as through my consulting experience, my coaching experience, is that when there's emphasis placed on non-academic relationship building time, whatever that activity looks like, that really does help to support your students' ability to learn. Students learn best from people that they like. They learn best from people that they, trust, that they feel like they have a good relationship with. So making this a part of your planning, making it intentional, is really going to benefit the academic just as much. So it's worth the time. Okay. So class counsel. Like I said, this was a weekly kind of meeting time for my students, and I'm going to go through the components that should be there, as well as what that can look like virtually. So like I said, you can have pieces of this that you might do daily. Personally, for myself, it was weekly, and then with the goals that we set from that, we would check in on those goals daily. So when I say structured, you want to have specific kind of checklist items that you're doing in that time, so that, of course, students know what to expect and when to expect it. They know what's expected of them. It's just very clear. So the pieces that I would include in my own were celebrations, and I would tell them, it can be academically, it can be non-academically. They could be personal, however you want. Again, you want to set some parameters around this, especially if you have some younger guys that could go on for a long time. You may even want to set up some type of system around submitting them earlier so that you can just read them if you feel like it's going to carry on longer than you want. You can manipulate this however you'd like. But celebrations was one, concerns was another one, and that was super important for my students to have that space that kind of builds that emotional support. It also builds the trust with your students. And personally, again, this is something I did beforehand. So I might have some type of messaging system where they can, whether that's email or if your school has its own specific, but they can message you the concern ahead of time, however that looks, so that they know they have to be in by this time. And then you will go through and say some of the concerns in the classroom and add your own as well. This is always a good time to address some full class issues, not specific students. But again, helping to build that relationship, that we're actually having concerns and we're talking about them and we're working through them. Additionally, I would build in some social emotional learning. So I typically base this off a concern that either a lot of students have or I myself may have. And again, this could be about the virtual part of our learning now, like that we changed to virtual. What are some of the concerns that we're having there? And really building in not just talk about them, no solution, but what is the solution? Step by step, how can we fix this? What can we do to ensure that this is no longer a concern? And that's the piece where I said setting a goal earlier. Typically, we'd set a goal from that, and that's something I could come back to on a daily basis to, hey, remember, our goal is this. This is what I'm looking for. This is how we're going to ensure that we're getting, we're reaching our goal. And so, again, that was a part of it. Another piece may be student spotlight. And that could be one student, that could also be a group of students, that could be however you want it to look. But it is a way to, again, get some more information out of students as far as getting to know them a little bit better, as well as just making them feel that love, that appreciation, and some type of esteem. If if it's a student who's a little bit more shy, maybe doesn't want to show something in their house or whatever it is, obviously kind of think about that ahead of time and have some backups. Always good to be prepared. But really involving students as much as possible in this structure kind of helps them to take ownership and helps them to see themselves within that conversation. And lastly, you see there, create systems for smooth interactions. So that's kind of what I'm talking about as far as just have a system for how do they submit concerns, or how do they submit their celebrations, or if they don't do this, what does that look like? But keeping things on a system just helps to create some continuity and to keep things smooth and easy for you. You don't want this to feel overwhelming. So the more front-loading work you can do, the easier it is to implement. Excuse me. But like I said, this can look a number of ways. If you want more information or more ideas, again, let me know. But this definitely felt like it was worth the time that I set aside, usually every Friday, because we were able to set those goals around the social emotional, the concerns, things like that, as well as just get to know each other, talk a little bit more than just academically. So that was number one. Number two, interactive games. Sorry, I didn't mean to go there just yet. So this could be used, however you want. Again, I always used game time a lot. Well, I didn't always, but a lot of times for the goal that I talked about during our class council, that social emotional goal. Maybe it's time, again, if you've met it over the week, you can have time there. Maybe it's a brain break time. Maybe it's an icebreaker. If it's early morning class, you need them to kind of wake up. You figure out what works for you, but definitely, again, giving some time to interact non-academically, get to know them, get them comfortable, silly, whatever. It really helps with the academic side. So again, it's worth the time to put into. All right, so a couple game ideas are, there we go. Scavenger hunt. So I actually did this on a virtual baby shower. It was really fun. But I've also seen it done with classrooms and youth groups, things like that. And it's just exactly what it sounds like. So putting together a list of items and you can make the category. Maybe they all start with a certain letter. Something from the kitchen, something from here. It could be related. This could even be related to, a lesson of some sort. But giving them either the list ahead of time, it could even be relay. So within a group, first person's going to go grab this. When they come back, then the next person can go, and you can time it. So it can look a lot of different ways, but keeping it simple is going to be easiest, of course. And keeping in mind also that students are at home where they may not have everything you have in your home. So trying to keep it simple is going to be helpful for that as well, just to save students from, you know, any type of embarrassment or things along those lines. You want to just try to think broad versus specific when it comes to that. The next one, charades. Again, what it sounds like, the way this could be done virtually, first of all, there is a charades topic generator online. You can Google it, so you don't have to think of them yourself. There's even a category for kids, so you can keep it easy. Obviously, you can do it as the leader. You can act something out and get them to guess. You can also involve students, though, by privately messaging, if you're using Zoom or something similar, with, okay, this is what you're acting out, and getting everyone to guess it like that, making sure everybody's on mute, and maybe they have to type it in, or maybe you have a timer at the end of the timer. Everyone can type it in. You figure out, again, what works for you, but something fun to play. Next one, Pictionary. Exactly like what it sounds like. You can use the whiteboard feature if you're using Zoom or something similar. You can, same thing, privately message a student to do the same and time it. Or there is an online version where you can make your own like room, where it'll give you a link and you can send that link to your students, and they all join the same room with you, and you can play it online just to make it easier, because you can time it there and things like that. So I left the website there. Next idea, Sage and Scribe. So this is actually something we use in the academic side of things, but it can be done non-academically as well, where a student, though, will draw something, whatever category you come up with, on their own. So like on a piece of paper, and leave it down, not showing the rest of the class. And again, you can start by doing it. From there, they are to give descriptive words to describe their drawing, and they need to be as descriptive as possible. So they're kind of guiding them through what to do, how to be descriptive, et cetera, and at the end of it, then you will have, you know, them hold up and see who's as close to the original as possible. So this is kind of academic as well as working on, you know, those descriptor words. You can make it academic fully by actually incorporating a math problem, what to do, how to solve, you know, however that looks. You can make it kind of fit anything. I'm sure your imagination can run wild, but it can definitely be done virtually. And last, I think, yes, is categories. So this one's always fun. There's categories using a specific letter. So maybe you have everybody, okay, for 60 seconds, you're going to write down every animal you can think of, and they write down all the animals that they can think of, or every name that starts with A. However you want to do it. And again, that can turn into academic as well. And anything, so at the end, the idea is that the person with like the longest list would go first and read off what they have. And if you have it yourself, you have to cross it off. So you're hoping to, at the end, have some words left over that no one thought of. So it's a good idea to be creative, think outside the box. Again, this can be done virtually, piece of paper, make it simple, or there is an online version. The website is there. It's kind of easier there, because then you can actually have their answers submitted to you, so you can just kind of see who has, how many people have certain answers down. And again, you can time it. It's a private room for the game that you can send out the link for, et cetera, et cetera. So that would be an easier way to do. All right, so those are two non-academic ways to connect. I was going to have you guys share out a few, but I also want to keep this quick for you. So let's go ahead, and I'm just going to keep going through, and we're going to get the other two academic thoughts as well. And before we go, though, I'm just going to take a quick drink. All right. All right, so in the interest of time, I'm just going to keep moving. Like I said, those are the two non-academic ways. We're going to talk about the academic ways to Cultivate relationships. So these are going to seem like, that's a little like, how? So they're a little abstract, but they definitely do allow you to get to know the student better and to cultivate some of those characteristics that we already talked about in order to build that healthy relationship with your students. Because ultimately, that's what we're looking for them to have those feelings, those characteristics, so that we can pour into them. That's what kind of opens them up to be poured into. So the two academic ways are interest-based lessons and learning styles. Again, a tad bit more abstract, but these are both ways for you to get to know what your students like, to make certain things fun and interesting for them, to really just support who they are and the ways that they best learn. And through learning those things about them, you can speak to them. And by speaking to them, that's helping them to see that, oh, teacher actually cares about me. They know me. I'm not just a square on the screen, but I'm actually a real person. So now, in order to actually implement these things, you got to learn this information first, right? We have to know what they're interested in. We have to know their learning styles. I know a lot of you probably used to give out the back to school packet, and they would fill it out and return it, and maybe some way you still did it. But if you did not, if you weren't able to get as much information as you normally would have, this can easily be done through something like a Google Forms, where you can gather some of this information and ensure that you're asking the questions that are necessary for you to be able to implement interest-based lessons and appeal to their learning styles in your planning process. Again, both of these are something you're understanding you're doing to build relationships, but I will say with students, you kind of have to overtly tell them, hey, notice I know you. I did this so that you could, feel a part of that. I know it sounds crazy, but you do have to almost say it for them. And I'm just going to give a quick, I guess, experience with this. I was working with a school not this past school year, the school year before that, and there was a survey question for students, and one of the questions said something like, my teacher plans with me in mind, or something like that, or no, my teacher knows, something like that, like she knows what I like and plans with me in mind. And a lot of the students marked like no, and we're like, I wonder why, because I've actually seen some lessons that definitely they don't know. They may not, they just think maybe it's random, or they're not understanding that this is something you're planning with them in mind. And you might wonder, well, why do I need to tell them? But that them making that connection helps them to understand, again, my teacher is making an effort to get to know me, to be able to converse with me about these more personal things, and that is showing the care. So it is a good idea to just speak to what you're doing. Okay, so interest-based lessons. This can look like a few different ways. Selecting texts that center around activities your students like, maybe changing word problems to include their interests or names, incorporating videos to further explain. Again, knowing that just students in general are kind of drawn to media, video, things like that in that nature, including activities or games to support instruction. Incorporating pop culture or current events, being able to speak to those things as you are teaching the content, kind of just sparks the interest. It helps them to see, oh, we connect on something. You understand me. You understand what I'm interested in. So that helps to build the relationship, being conscious of those interests as you are planning. Again, improves trust, that mutual respect. It increases the fun. The second way academically was learning styles. There are actually, sometimes you'll look up learning styles and there's actually 7, but these 4 are the, I guess, most typical that we're thinking about when we're talking about learning styles. And students can fall into more than one category. Even thinking about yourself, you probably think you fall into more than one category. I know I definitely do. And so knowing their learning style, and again, kind of helping them to see that you're creating activities or planning your lesson out with that in mind. Hey, Billy, this part of the lesson is for you. I know you really like to X, Y, and Z. So, kind of let them know I'm thinking about you with this. I'm thinking about you with this. That helps to build that relationship, to cultivate that trust, to create that mutual respect, and to, again, create a little bit of fun, because it's a way that I enjoy learning. It's a way that I feel successful. So like I said, keeping that in mind as you plan. So if we're talking about visual, a lot of times we think pictures and videos, which is definitely part of it, but it also can include, charts, graphs, diagrams that kind of summarize the information. Visual learners tend to be a little bit more holistic, wanting to see the full picture. So sometimes videos or slides of pictures, it kind of still chops it up and they have to put it together. So kind of thinking more in a holistic term, how can I visually represent the finished product? That would be helpful for a visual learner. Auditory, just what it sounds like. They actually learn by hearing out loud. So knowing if you have a lot of those learners, that's something that you need to also say it as they read along, or say it aloud as they're watching, or remind them of specific look fors or specific tasks as they're doing something. That auditory may be helpful, but it's also a two-way street for auditory learners. So it's not just about opportunities to listen to you or to classmates, but it's also about opportunities to speak. So being able to get into those breakout groups, if you have that capability, or creating opportunity for students to be able to have that discourse and to speak, is going to be really important for your auditory learners as well. Reading and writing, again, what it sounds like, but this can be, allowing them to get out and do a little bit of research on their own, or reading on their own. It may be allowing them to write in order to process. So chunking through your lesson and providing space and time for them to actually take the notes that are necessary, or just be able to process their thoughts through writing. So keeping that in mind. And kinesthetics, so that would be, movements. Those are learners that like to do, basically. They like to be busy, not just sitting, listening. Reading and writing can be a part of that, but that's not where it stops. And so you want to ensure to create activities that allow them to be creative, or to role play, or to challenge or win something. And also be sure to chunk your lesson in order to allow for some movement in between if they have been sitting for a while, knowing that that's necessary. So again, it can look a number of ways, but keeping that in mind as you're planning will, and like I said, kind of overtly saying it to your students and calling them out and letting them know that you know them, is going to help build that trust and that relationship with you as well. So just being conscious of that. So like I said, we've got non-academic, class, counsel, as well as some of the games, and academically looking at their student interests as you're building your lessons, as well as their learning styles. Those are all going to be ways to help you really build relationships with your students, even though we're virtual. So homework, because it's school, of course, to really research and reflect on what we've talked about, and to intentionally plan, to prepare, to implement, to reflect and refine. Don't be afraid to ask for feedback from your students. There's a ton of resources out there. So, I mean, even down to some of the games, other things, there's a lot of YouTube videos. There's a lot of information out there, as well as using us as a resource as well. And then remembering that everyone is at home, and their home life may be a little bit different. So just have some patience with yourself, have some patience with your students, figure out what works for you. If you have any questions, please be sure to email me at kristen@theurbanconnectionproject.org. And if you want to see a little bit more information, we do have products available that are on our website. So please take a look at our website, www.theurbanconnectionproject.org. And those are available for purchase right now. There's actually a special on the workbook, the Introduction to Culturally Responsive Teaching, just through the month of August. So only got a little bit over, 11 days left in this month, which is crazy, but we do have a special. And please join us next time for our next webinar in September, which is we're going to be discussing filling in the gaps. So it's a little bit more straight academic. How can we fill in some of the gaps that some of our students may be missing as a result of the pandemic and everything that's been going on? So thank you very much. Let me see this. I'm sorry, do y'all off the district? So if you are interested in webinars for your district, I think is what you're saying, then yes, absolutely. Just email me. We can talk through what that looks like. And we also can provide the products as well, but we definitely do virtual professional development right now. So that's definitely something we can discuss. So please let me know. And I think it doesn't have to be just, yeah, I was gonna say just email me and we can talk through it, not a problem. But thank you all for joining. I really appreciate you taking out your time. Made it pretty close to the 30 minutes I was hoping for. So again, I hope you got something out of it, something that you can contribute to your classroom experience. And if you have any more suggestions on this topic, please email me, let me know. That's always something we can bring back around, post in our social media, etc. Again, thank you so much. Appreciate you all, and I hope you have a great day.